Alright guys, so the FNAF 2 movie has just released in theaters in certain places, so I've just gotten back from the theaters watching it, and I'm going to be giving you my spoiler-free review in this video. So I'm going to be doing one with spoilers, but this one I'm going to be trying to keep spoiler-free. I'm not sure how long this is going to be. I presume it's going to be very short, but let's get into it. The first thing I want to say is, of course, I was blown away by the movie, of course. Do I think it was better than the first movie? I think it was. You saw a lot more of the animatronics and a whole bunch of them, mainly the toy animatronics. They got a whole lot of action, and there were so many crazy stunts in the movie with them. And the jump scares, there were quite a few of them actually. There's a lot more than the first movie, and it wasn't like horrifying scary. They didn't have me crapping my pants or anything, but it was like, oh, that's pretty scary, bro. That's cool. The entire horror tone of the film and the whole violence thing, it was definitely cranked up a lot more compared to the first movie. It wasn't crazy up there, but it was definitely cranked up way higher than the first movie. So if you're going into this movie expecting it to be really scary with a lot of gore, like so many guts and organs, and with some really traumatizing moments that are really going to scare you and just keep you awake at night, well, you're not going to get that out of this movie. It was definitely, like I said, a lot more cranked up compared to the first movie, but it was not cranked all the way up there to that point where I just described. It was definitely, I don't know how to describe it to the point it was. The best way I can say it, I think, is just that it's 2.5 times more violent and scarier than the first movie. The first movie was a bit scary, there's a bit of violence, but it was not a whole lot in the first movie. In the second movie, there's not a whole lot again, but there's way more than the first movie. Also, speaking on the plot, at least to me, I'm not sure if I'm going to be correct on this because I'm a FNAF fan and I was watching this with a FNAF fan, but to me, at least, I feel like this movie is much more digestible compared to the first movie for an average audience. People that aren't fans of the FNAF franchise, I think they will at least be able to digest this movie more easily compared to the first movie. I don't think it's as complex as the first movie, where you need to at least somewhat understand the games with Spring Bonnie and all that, with Springtrap and the Spring Locks, at least some of those elements. But whether they will like the film or not is really up in the air, because I really don't know, because of course I really like the movie as a FNAF fan, but I don't know if the general audience will like the whole plot and all that. With the amount of elements and lore that is going on in the movie, I'm not sure if the general audience will like that or not. It's really up in the air. I probably will end up watching it with people who aren't fans of the games, who haven't really played them or know a whole lot about it. I might, I don't know though. But I think they will like it more than the first movie, but I think it still does not fully appeal to a general, more broad audience. I think this movie, it was stated to be made for the fans. That was their first priority, so I can understand that. But that's kind of a mixed bag, because you kind of want more people to be into the movie, so I really don't know. But this movie may or may not be able to be enjoyed by the general audience. I'm not sure if they will enjoy it or not. It really depends on the person, I think. I really don't know. Now, as a FNAF fan, I really did enjoy the movie. I liked it more than the first one, but there was still a few problems with it, and I don't think it's perfect, of course. I don't think any film is perfect, but the main problem, I think, was the pacing. It just felt really fast. I think it was just hard for them to cram so much into the 1 hour and 44 minute time that they had. And this might just be a me problem, but I was a bit confused on like when the start, middle, and end sections of the movie was. Like, when I was getting towards the end of the movie, I was like, is this really the end? There's no way. Is it? Oh, it might be. Oh, it is. It's kind of like that. And certain times, it really felt really rushed, and it was very fast at times. So you really got to be paying a lot of attention to the movie. So it's not something that you can just kick back and relax and just kind of half watch it. You really got to pay attention and be like ready to fully spring lock in when you go and watch the movie, because you really need to pay a lot of attention, because you might miss a small detail, or you just might get confused as to what's going on. Something that I really liked about the movie, but I just wish we got a little bit more of, is we got kind of some scenes relating to the gameplay elements of FNAF 2, as we saw in the trailer, obviously, with the mask and all that. I just wish we saw a bit more. It was kind of brief. I can understand why they didn't show a lot of it, because they've got to make room for the rest of the movie, and the rest of the movie is already a bit rushed and a bit fast-paced, so I can understand why there wasn't a lot of it, but I really do wish that there was more emphasis on the mechanics from the games. There wasn't a whole lot of them, but you did see them. And I do wish we got more of those scenes, a bit more extended and all that. Another thing I really wish we saw more of, and really wish that had more relevance in the overall plot, was the withered animatronics. We did see a fair amount of them, but I just wanted more of them. The toy animatronics were the ones in the spotlight. We saw a crazy amount of them, but the withered animatronics, they were kind of just pushed to the side, honestly. I really wish we saw a lot more of them. We got a lot more story behind them. We got more scenes with them. I just really wish we got more out of them. Now, the biggest shock to me with this movie is the entire plot, the whole storyline to me. As a FNAF fan, it really shocked me with the direction they went. It was very different from the direction that I thought they would be going in. This movie heavily strays away from the movie timeline and the lore and all that, which was kind of what we saw in the first movie. But this really strays away from the timeline, and it's very different from what we're used to with the game's timeline, or at least what we think the game's timeline is about. But it's definitely more in line with what we saw in the books. It definitely gave me a lot of novel trilogy vibes with the Twisted Ones, the Fourth Closet, the Silver Eyes, all of them. It definitely had a lot of elements with them, like with the animatronics roaming around outside of the pizzeria like we saw in the trailers. It definitely had a lot more vibes and more in line with the novel trilogy, which makes a lot of sense in hindsight because Scott wrote the main plot to the novel trilogy, so it makes sense that since he's writing this movie as well, it definitely has his vision, so I can definitely see this movie being in line with his vision, but it's very different from what I'm used to. It's very different from the game's timeline. It definitely has a lot more in common with the novel trilogy timeline, but not a whole lot. It just has some borrowed elements from there. The entire plot is still very different from the novel trilogy, definitely, but it honestly takes a lot more elements from the novel trilogy compared to FNAF 2, honestly. So what I'm trying to say is that when you go into this movie, have a very open mind that anything could be possible, because this movie likes to throw so many different plot twists and all that at you. There's so many different elements and all that, so it is kind of complex, and it's kind of hard to wrap your head around it as a FNAF fan, because the plot and movie is very different from the game, so if you're going in with that mindset, then you're going to be very confused, and you're going to be very shocked, and it's going to subvert your expectations, and you might get confused for a little bit and just not understand what's going on, so you got to keep an open mind and just don't have the game timeline in your mind at the time when you're watching this. Just try not think about that a whole lot. Just know that it is very different from the games. It's a completely separate continuity. Very, very different from the games. The whole plot and story of the movie compared to the games being very different, I'd say a good comparison would be not only the novel trilogy compared to the games timeline, but the way Secret of the Mimic subverted a lot of people's expectations into believing that the Tales from the Pizzaplex books were canon. It's a very similar feeling to that, but the changes are very drastic, way more than it was compared to Secret of the Mimic, where Fiona died later on and was a part of David's life, and the Mimic didn't have his legs in the books version compared to Secret of the Mimic, where he did have legs from the start. At least in that case, there's still many elements that are shared between the two, like with Edwin throwing his rage at the Mimic, and Fiona dying later on, and David dying later on as well, in most likely a car accident relating to the ball and all that. But the movie universe, it really subverted my expectations. I feel like I got almost everything completely wrong. I did have some guesses that were right, but it was very different from what I was expecting. Going back to the Tales from the Pizzaplex books versus the Secret of the Mimic lore, if they applied the logic with the changes they made in the movie to Secret of the Mimic, it would be like if Edwin was a murderer trying to do anything to bring back his son, and like if the Mimic was just a good guy all of a sudden. It's like very different. It's so flipped on its head. It is crazily different, guys. I'm very shocked. I feel like the novel trilogy has more in common with the games compared to the movie having more in common with the games. So my expectations were very subverted, and I think I went in with very high expectations. I was expecting this to be a masterpiece of a film, with a really good take on the game's lore, with everything translating to the movie universe, still being different from the games, but still really in line with the games at the same time, at least character and mechanic wise. And I was really hoping there would be some crazy Easter eggs that would really blow you away, and there was one, but I feel like that was it. There was only that one, and there was a couple other smaller ones here and there, but other than that, I didn't really see a whole lot of Easter eggs, honestly. There was definitely a fair amount of them, but probably around the same amount as the first movie, maybe even less than the first movie, honestly. There probably was a fair amount of them, but because of how fast the movie goes and how fast you have to process everything, I probably missed a lot of them because there was just so much going on, so I probably missed them. So when I watch the movie again, I'll probably look out for them. But surely there's more than just 2 or 3 very brief character appearances and a couple lines and all that. So overall, I really did enjoy the movie, but I definitely went in with too high expectations and too many expectations relating to the games and all that. And the movie had its fair share of problems with the pacing, mainly. That's the biggest one, mainly. And also the underutilization of certain elements and all that. But other than that, I really enjoyed the movie. And yeah, I do think it was better than the first one. But the first movie still holds up really well the more I think about it, at least from what I remember. I do think they are very close with the level of quality and all that. And I do think I was expecting a bit too much. So maybe I have a bit of a bias because of that. And also because of the fact that I'm a FNAF fan. So maybe I'm leaning in the direction where, because I'm a FNAF fan and I was overhyping this in my head, I'm gonna be more fair and more critical on the movie. But at the same time, I feel like in some aspects, the movie didn't live up to at least the lower end of my high expectations, so I feel like my complaints are somewhat justified, but I really don't know. It could go either way. So if you haven't watched the movie yet and you're planning to watch it, my best advice would be to go into the movie with a very open mind and forget about the lore in the games. Also have very low expectations, so when you watch the movie, you'll be blown away and you won't be overhyped and just feel disappointed when you come out watching the movie. And yeah, that's my spoiler-free review of the FNAF 2 movie, and I'll see you guys in the non-spoiler-free review, hopefully. Bye.